Hi, I'm Christina, and today I wanted to talk about some definite troubling warning signs that I'm seeing in the news around Houston that I thought I would discuss with everyone so that you could at least consider this. We recently had an article here in Houston about a gas smell being in downtown and the west side of Houston, and that there was about 200 phone calls made about it, all right? And they tried to give all these different explanations as to why, including like the refineries on the east side must have been blowing in some of that pollution from there. But I've lived on the east side. I grew up on the east side of Houston, and I know what they're talking about. They're talking about Pasadena specifically, and we call it Stinkadena because when you drive through there, it smells like a septic tank. It is so, it's awful. It's been like that for years. We've been having to deal with it, but I've never gone into downtown Houston after passing through that place and had a problem with the smell all the years I've grown up. But recently, the last couple of years, there's been like a few reports of downtown Houston, having to stop what they're doing, getting emergency calls to like a club in the middle of the night that, smells gas, but they can't find a leak in the pipes and they don't know where it's coming from. And this one, it was like at some kind of, what did they call it? Among the locations reporting the smell was the municipal courthouse near downtown, but the all clear has been since given there, and they really never came up with an explanation for the gas leak. But there's also been gas smells coming from the west side, the Bel Air side, off and on now for a couple of years also. And I've been watching that, and the sinkholes that have been popping up around Houston, there's been some in downtown, the east side, but it seems like they're most prevalent on the west side and Bel Air, where this methane smell keeps coming up from, right? And then there was this interview on Paul Begley's show on October 25th called Breaking 5 Waves of Energy to Hit Earth. And there was an interview with Mike from around the world, and Mike said magma moving under the earth at a terrible rate, and it's affecting gas lines. Smells coming out of ground will cause a nauseating sickness. Types of gases, methane, oxides, and other toxic gases. And so I'm seeing that they're coming out of the ground, right? And it just seems to worry me, not just because the gas is coming out of the ground and the sinkholes are happening, but then you remember things like, okay, May 29th, Galveston's usually muddy water was clear blue. And my people were telling me, hey, that was way too salty. It's already salty, but I mean, it was like putting a spoonful of salt in your mouth, kind of salty. It was ridiculous. And the very next day, Galveston Yacht Club had a report of thousands of fish deaths. Now, we don't normally have fish deaths like that in Galveston, but we do have salt domes underneath that water and underneath our land, all over, okay? Clear to DayZ East, okay? We have these salt domes, these salt mines, and they can collapse, right? And I think that's what really happened when Galveston's water got clear. But when you put that together, we know that the Earth, it's being affected by this weak magnetosphere, and that it has affected volcanoes rising up out of the ground. But that's not the only thing that's deep under the ground. That's why Africa has this purple water coming up. When they just shovel down a foot, maybe a foot, they're seeing this, because that's from deep under the ground too. And it's not, out of a thought range that gases can also do that too. And we're Houston. I mean, when you think about Houston, what do you think about? Oil, right? And what comes up with that oil? What's under the ground with that oil? Gases, uranium, there's stuff down there with that fuel that we want, and that's why it has to be refined the way that it does, okay? But it's not like Houston is the only one having problems per se. I mean, there was a thing in Arkansas within the last month and India where the ground opened up and started shooting fire out of it. And I knew that was probably gas related also, because it's not, I mean, there are just so many ways to ignite gases. But I also believe that in Arkansas's case, I think it also has a mixture of sulfur in the ground that probably aggravated it a little bit more, you know, is what I'm thinking. Got like sand, salt domes, and shell underneath us, and oil and gases. That's pretty much what's underneath us, okay? So that pushed us down even more. Houston is one of those sinking cities, so that's why as the floods keep coming, I mean, they are worse, but the city's going to start taking harder hits. But there's also North Houston, there's been a fault line in the Woodlands going up I-45 that has shifted the ground like a foot or two over a month's period of time. There's like lawsuits going on for the property owners off in the Woodlands a couple of years ago, right? There's also a recent problem that's bothering me also, and that is the way the bees are acting around here right now. I have this neighborhood I live in, and I've lived here for 2 years. I've lived in other neighborhoods and never seen bees acting like this. It's not like there's a hive that we can find anywhere in the neighborhood. They're not like swarming in one place. It's like they're just evenly distributed across the neighborhood, and there are just so many of them, and they're everywhere. And it's like they're very guarded around my plants too. I've noticed if I go trying to water them, it's like I've got about 3 or 4 trying to push at me, trying to like get me away from these plants and the neighbors. And I think, you know, that part of it is that they know that it's going to be a harder winter, but there's other people that are like, this is kind of out of season for them to be acting like this. And above all, I'm thinking this is just strange insect behavior. So when I put that with the methane, and I went ahead and checked with Houston to see if they had any reports with bee issues, and the only one I found was, believe it or not, on the northwest side where they had this huge beehive they discovered. But I don't know if that'd be out of the ordinary, but it did make the news. Houston may not be okay, that something might be brewing around here, because there are certainly things that have been going on that I haven't seen in my whole life of living here. I will leave you with that, and I will talk to you very soon. God bless.